Okay, so the questions. So, what have you thought about the questions? So, first one, as a student learning
Mm,
your second, well, foreign language in this case, what type of uh, corrective feedback do you prefer, or have you preferred?
in my case, I would rather the implicit one
Mm-hmm,
because if I can realize in the practice what I'm
mm-hmm.
doing wrong, I can really realize of my mistakes. Yeah,
All right,
which
absolutely.
means that if I realize the mistake, in the future I would probably remember the time in which I did it on a role play and my partner corrected me indirectly, or you did it indirectly when I was while talking to you. So I guess that for me the implicit one is the best, the better one, best one that I would choose. That I would rather.
Okay, sounds good.
And the one that to answer the second question, that would be the one that I would use for correct by students too.
Okay, sounds good. What else? No more.
What about the others?
What about the others? What do you think about that? You can interact with the chat, or you can
Yeah,
interact
voice.
orally as you wish.
Teacher, the most part of the students didn't understand what you said before because some of them had unstable connection.
Okay, okay. So
So, well, maybe, yeah, maybe you could re-explain them that, but I don't know if they are good with that.
okay,
Ask to Angelica that
are
Angelica
you
was.
listening to me right now in a very good way for all of you?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
we
who
are.
is having?
Yes.
Okay, who has um, who has audio problems right now?
I don't have problems with the
Juan Carlos, Angelica, you're still having problems with the internet? Okay, I have an unstable connection. Okay, not to worry. I'm going to upload this information, but wow. Okay, what? Ah, yeah. Okay, I'm going to explain again the corrective feedback in a very fast way, right? So I'm going to do it in this way. Very, very quick. Okay. Okay. Here I'm going to share. Okay. Everybody listening to me?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. So we're going to continue with uh, this issue. Once again, ah, here. Okay. So once again, so in this case, we're going to take into account the types of the 6 types of corrective feedback. So we have recast, explicit correction that belongs to the reformulations. We have for prompts, we have elicitation, that is making the what I forgot what elicitation is. What was yeah, extracting information, right? And also it's which be just related to classification requests. So for example, you ask me for some examples and I'm going to provide you that repetition, that you all know what repetition is, and meta-linguistic clues, which are going to be just those ideas in which those ideas or those comments or questions for the students to realize about the whole information and realize about the way in which they're going to do those corrections, right? In this case, we also have the types. So we have explicit and implicit. For both of them, we have reformulation and prompts. So we have conversational requests, repetition, classification requests for implicit, right? And we have for explicit, we have didactic requests, metalinguistic clues, elicitation, explicit correction with or without a metalinguistic explanation, and paralinguistic signal. We all know that metalinguistic clues are going to be those elements related to what? To the way in which the information is going to be provided, right? So the terminology, we're going to use some examples, we're going to use the context, everything for the student to understand, and also questions for the student to understand what is going to be, what it is meant to be, right? And the paralinguistic signals are going to be just related to those non-verbal expressions. Now, in this part, I asked you a question and Ricardo just answered to it. So, for example, as a student learning your foreign language, what type of corrective feedback do you prefer? So you said that implicit. Now, I would like to ask you if you prefer some kind of what feedback do you prefer for being corrected?
Teacher, I think both are important.
Why?
Because I don't know how to say.
Because
For example, explicit feedback helps to correct our mistakes, our errors, but when we are talking, for example, as Ricardo said, in a role play, and we listen sometimes the correction, we could improve that.
okay.
So it's necessary to know the information to know the information or about the error and then correct it, and then it could be corrected by other one, and it will help us to don't repeat it.
Okay. Not to be repeated. Okay, very good. Yes. So in this case, the explicit one, meaning the direct one, is going to be used, for example, for beginners and if this is becoming a fossilization, right? So that is going to be a very good alternative. But the implicit one is when, for example, you know that there's a mistake and you're going to let the student know the right way from the mistake, right? So for errors, it sounds better the explicit. But for mistakes, the implicit one sounds good too. But both of them are good. Okay, now, would you correct your students in the same way and why? Let's suppose you have students. You're going to give them a kind of corrective feedback, but how?
Teacher, I reckon that we cannot use the same strategy to correct the different errors and mistakes that a student have, because we have to take into consideration that every single student has different needs that we have to put into consideration at the moment to apply one of the corrective or types of correction or corrective. So I consider that we have to really emphasize in what is the need, what is the problem of the students, and after that, after that, we have to analyze what is the best possibility or what is the best type to correct the problem.
Very good. Really like it. Okay, cool. But let's create a situation. That was very general and that was okay. Now let's create a very specific situation. I don't know, give me a mistake you have seen in the corpuses. Lina no escucha nada. Anybody else is listening?
Yes, I do.
I do.
Okay. Okay, cool. So, once again, so how would you do those corrections? So, depending on the situation, okay? Depending on uh, okay, depending on the situation and depending on the the problem we're going to deal. Now, what kind of feedback do you find yourself giving the most and why? Nice. People. What type of feedback do you find yourself giving the most and why?
Maybe teacher, in my case, I would prefer clarification quest because after that, or yes, through this example, or through this type of feedback, maybe students or maybe your institute teachers will be able to really mention that is something that is not clear in the message or in the discourse of the students, and students could take advantage of this possibility of this kind of feedback, really reorganize and to produce a more comprehensible message to the discourse or maybe at the moment to write.
Okay, very good. Angelica says, I think the explicit because in my case, I prefer to know the mistakes and the moment. Yes. So, well, both of you are correct, Leonardo and Angelica, right? So, very good. You have been understanding this issue. Now, let's continue.
Teacher, I'm
Yes?
agree with Angelica because I think it's better to know which mistakes you have, and how you can correct them. But also, I think for mistakes would be better an implicit
Mm-hmm.
way, because it's something that you already know.
Okay, very good. As you see right here in this example and what Camila was saying, Camila, yes, or I'm mistaken.
Yes, teacher Camila.
Okay, very good. Okay, as I'm not seeing you,
Camila.
so as I'm not seeing you, so I may be mistaken. Okay, okay, very good. So here, as we see right here, we're going to say um, what is going to be upper, what is going to have an upper um, perception or absorption this way. So, for example, the explicit one is going to be even more powerful than that implicit, right? So the implicit is when you maybe you have a kind of lapsus, right? And you need to like an extra tip for you to master what you're doing. But the explicit one, as you have already said, is going to be for correcting that error, right? Just because of the lack of knowledge that you have, right? That is why we're going to use prompts, right? So instead of doing this, do this. Instead of doing that, start doing this. Example, do not say cat black because that is Spanish. Say a black cat because that is English, right? And then you're going to show some more examples. And the recast test is when the student already knows the answer, but what if the student doesn't know the answer, right? Marcela says, in my opinion, the implicit and explicit should be adequate. It depends the context too. Yes, of course, Marcela, you're right. Okay. So here, in terms of noticing, right? So this is just because the way or the context, as Marcela has stated, right? So for example, the explicit is going to be just for beginners or for those errors that we're going to consider that they're going to be fossilized, right? Now, in the case that we are some like explaining a topic, but we need to do in an inductive way. So for example, we're going to teach grammar in an inductive way, and it's going to take, for example, 3 hours long for us to teach this class. So it is better to use implicit, right? So why? Because with implicit feedback, corrected feedback, we're going to, how can I say this? We're going to show the student the way in which this, let's say, grammar is going to be used or implemented in the real world. Example, in Colombia, right here, we barely know some structures about Spanish grammar, but the ones we know are going to be done or are or were or have been given, sorry, or provided in our high schools, right, or in the elementary schools. So that's good, that's nice. But in the end, what we really want to do, or what we really want to teach in these classrooms, is going to be, for example, just the use of grammar in a very inductive way, right? Sorry, didactic way. So we're going to deduce how to use this. Example, when you go to the street, you start using the grammar or the pragmatics in the way you know it is going to be used, right? But explicit is, for example, when we're making a lot of errors and we need to change them for the communication not to be affected. Sorry. Got it?
Yes.
Yeah. Questions? Yes. Okay. Very good. Okay. Now,
Teacher,
let's.
what's
Yes.
the different? What's a recast? I mean, I'm really lost in
Yeah,
that part. I didn't get.
yeah. Prompts are going to be just, for example, the ideas, maybe questions that you're going to ask the students, the meta-linguistic concepts, the paralinguistic part. But the recast is when you say, for example, when you're going to extract information. So, for example, in linguistics, recasters, let me look at information right here. Aha. So right here, to correct, a recast is a technique used in a language teaching to correct learner's error in such a way that communication is not obstructed. So to recast an error, an interlocutor will repeat the error back to the learner in a corrected form. So recast this. Example. Once again, let's use another example. Let's say
Repeat the error accurately.
yes, but it's going to be just giving the example in a proper way. So example, recast is to, once again, tell again
Okay.
but in a correct way. Example, as I was telling you. So let's say, for example, the car blue, and I'd say something like, well, that is not going to be the correct way for us to say that. We have a Green Lantern. We have superheroes. We have a yellow sun. We have a black hat. And what about the car? What is the car? Oh, we have a blue car. Oh, okay, perfect. So that is going to be the recast, right?
Yeah, I
So
got it.
leading the student in an implicit way. Remember, right here, implicit is going to be related to the recast.
Teacher, maybe we are correcting the error with some example.
Very
Yeah,
good.
but yeah,
Some examples that
that's
they're
it.
going to have the same structure, right?
Mhm.
So for example, if I'm saying, okay, we're going to create plans with near future, and the student says, you going to Paris tonight? Like, well, I am going to sleep tonight. I am, and before going to sleep, I am going to watch a movie. But maybe you are going to buy the tickets before you are going to what? To fly to Paris, right? Vivian, in my case, I know some rules, but when I talk, I forgot the rules, the grammar rules. Okay, so what could be the possible way for us to correct, to have a corrective feedback, a very good corrective feedback for those, oh yeah, forget, very good, for those issues. So once again, it's going to be just in an explicit way. Why? Because we have fossilized some ideas in a wrong way. So when someone gives me implicit feedback, yeah. So what is going to be wrong with this? Okay, the implicit feedback is going to be something like, well, maybe the issues in a very general way, okay? But with the explicit, it's going to be just direct, right? Don't do this, do that, don't do that, do this, right? Example, don't say car blue, say blue car. Don't say you going to Paris. No, you're going to say you are going to Paris. That is going to be explicit. Implicit is going to be like this. Okay, so you have said you're going to Paris. And I must say, I am going to teach you, right? So it's going to be just saying in an indirect way, what is in a deductive way, what we're going to, or what the student needs to understand and comprehend. That means that there are two principal types to correct, and each one has different ways. I'm going to use one word. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Yeah, Eureka. That's it, bingo.
Okay.
That's it. Very good, you're comprehending. Okay. Okay, congratulations. So that's going to be the way. So here, explicit and the moment, right? And you need to do it automatically. Implicit, there's going to be a long way for us to understand the whole thing, right? Example, what we're doing right here is going to be implicit, right? Because we're using a lot of examples in a very general way for us to understand the whole thing. But explicit will be something like, okay, you're going to read page number 9 from the book, and then you're going to answer the following questions. That is going to be explicit, right? So you're going to read, learn, understand, answer. Here, we're going to interact, and that is going to be implicit, meaning that we're going to deduce everything.
Okay.
Okay, here. Okay, here, we're going to say, why are corrected feedback preferences important? So yes, here we have a lot of information. So we have number one, this is what you influence the learning behaviors, right? If you correct someone in a wrong way, trust me, that person will never want to learn. So you need to be very careful on the way that is going to be, you're going to correct that. Example, when I was in first semester, I'm not going to tell the name of the teacher. I was inside a wrong class, and I listened that a student asked a question, and that person said, that's a kind of low-level question. Where did you come from? From a special needs school? I need another question. And that's something like, that's the worst example ever. The other thing, raising your voice. Yes, I know I have done that in the past. Now I'm a new person. I think so. Don't let me down. Okay, so a new person, same old times. Oh yeah, that's it. Okay, we have 10 more minutes with this, and then I'm going to create another space just to finish our 30 minutes, right? Okay, so yeah. So it's going to be like this. So, ooh, that means What's the question? No, I'm not asking a question. I'm not asking a question. I'm just clarifying right here, Alex. Not to worry. Okay. So, influences in the learning behavior. So the more accurate you do it, the better, right? So you have to try to learn at a psychological way. You have to try to comprehend at a psychological way the behaviors of your students, right? And the way they're going to be corrected, right? So not everybody is going to accept the correction in a very good way or in the same way, but we need to play with that, right? So right here, we need to avoid mismatches between our intentions as teachers and the learner's interpretations, resulting in negative effects of learning. Example, what if I'm going to raise my voice inside the class and I'm going to say something like let's say, I don't know, I don't like the way you do it. This is not the level required here. You're supposed to have C1 level and not B1. Come on, sit down and do something better. If you do it in that way, trust me, that person is going to feel frustrated, and the learning process that day and maybe the other days is going to be affected. But if I change it, something like, well, I think this course is going to be related to C1. And that's what the content says, right? Number one. Number two, I would like you to go to tutorials for us to have some conversations and for us to see how to improve in no time those failures that you have. But if you're going to use those words, try to use it individually, right? Don't overgeneralize the whole thing, because we don't want people to feel frustrated. No, we want people to raise that awareness, right? And that's it, right? So from this second point, there are going to be just 3 subsequent points. Okay, what they say? That is why you do the feedbacks in general and not individually. Okay, so I do it generally. Why? Because what is the example? When I do it generally, is because there's a same pattern that is being repeated, right? So I'm not going to tell, for example, you did this, you did that. No, if I need to tell you in a very individual way what you have done in a wrong or a very good way, I'm going to tell you. I have done that in the course of ethnographics and the course of, what is this? Research project, in which I started with the general issues. Why? Because I don't want people to repeat those issues or to do them for the first time. But individually is, for example, when I see some particularities that I need to treat, right?
Okay.
So that's the way in which I work, right? So it's going to be that general for things that I know that they're going to be repeated, they're going to be done just because we're not experts with the language, right? And individual, when I see just special patterns that I need to correct in no time. Got it?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Thanks for the question. Now, from the second point, we have conducted researchers have shown clear evidence that learners express preference for receiving corrective feedback over having their errors ignored. So, for example, when I don't see those when I don't focus myself on those errors, you're going to feel something like, okay, I don't know what I did. Did I did that good or did I did that wrong? Why do I have a 4 and not a 5? And those are the possible scenarios that we're going to have here. Okay, sorry, I was drinking a little bit of water. Then, when teachers take this into consideration, they become aware of when to offer corrective feedback and what types. So, for example, the issue that we're talking about, what is this? The role plays. So, for example, when to give this kind of feedback. So this feedback is going to be done at the end. Why? Because I don't want to interrupt the role play, right? It's like you're going to interrupt the movie while running, right? Or while you're watching the movie, just because you don't like something, right? So you're going to give your critics at the end of the movie, right? Same thing happens with the role play, right? Because why? Because you're using your memory over there. If I correct you, I'm going to stop your your memoristic process, and then you're going to start that kind of panic attack, and you're not going to continue, right? Or maybe you're going to continue, but without that kind of powerful feeling that you had at the beginning, right? So, for example, a presentation in which you have documents, you have slides, I can interrupt you. Why? Because you have the information there and you can go back and forth over and over again, right? Example, inside a conversation, I can interrupt you. Why? Because in that I can tell something like, okay, your previous idea was this, continue with that. Finally, we have that the different cultural backgrounds, learners' personalities, proficiency levels, and age all play a role in what corrective feedback is best or most effective to offer. So what is this? We need to take into account the population's uh, particularities, right? Because not all of them are going to receive the the feedback at the same way, right? So, for example, if I raise my voice just because I have been born and raised in Norte Santander, or I have been born and raised in Santander, right, where in which or where people they have a very strong tone of voice, right? So there are some other people that are not going to take that into a very good mood, right? So we need to know how to play with that. This is why, for example, some of you have said that I tend to talk in classes like if I were if I were talking radio. Okay, so it's really tough to work here in Colombia. Well, maybe yes, maybe no, especially in a university, especially in any place, right? So, for example, elementary school is going to be kind of delicate thing, right? So you need to know how to deal with this situation, right? So, for example, high school is another issue, but I think university is going to be kind of softer because we're deal with young adults, right? That is good. The important thing right here is to take what to take into account, right? Stop this suffering cold being Colombia. Well, yeah, let's say like that. Guys, I'm going to stop this this part right here. We're going to reset Zoom, yes, because we have only 1 minute. And I'm going to give you the new link for us to continue with the last part of the class, okay? And that's it.